friends, hearty welcome to Vidwas Sabha, half a day seminar on various topics relevant for young members. What we meant young means those who are young in mind and heart, not on age-wise. Those who are ready to change, those who are ready to learn new things are all young. So this program is specifically drafted for young members. So starting with the BI, business intelligence, to understand the current requirements in data analytics and all. And the second topic is offshore opportunities for chartered accountants. Then the last session is CPA Australia. This program is jointly arranged by CPA Australia and our ICI Bangalore branch. And from CPA Australia, their India representative is going to come and explain us how we can acquire CPA Australia qualification. So there are very easy methods, only I think very few papers we need to write to qualify as CPA Australia. ICI and CPA Australia have a memorandum of understanding. So she's going to explain us that thing, and we can understand that and we can apply for that qualification too. To start with the program, we have as data analytic specialist, we have invited him. He is none other than Saurabh Rishi is with us. May I request Sridhar sir to escort him onto a dais and also welcome him with a floral bouquet, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Saurabh Rishi. Thank you, Sridhar sir. Friends, it is my pleasure to introduce Saurabh Rishi to this August gathering. Saurabh, an analyst, consultant having over a decade of experience in data analytics, business consulting and market research and consulting startups. He has done executive program in business analytics and intelligence from IIM Bangalore in the year 2014-15. Currently he is working as Associate Vice President Analytics for MCA Technology Solutions Private Limited. Earlier he worked as a business analyst for Mo Sigma and also as consultant for Symphony Marketing Solutions. An MBA in Marketing and Market Research, qualified Rishi, also a gold medalist in BSc Economics, Statistics and Mathematics. He conducted several programs on analytics and business intelligence across India. More than that, a fascinating personality, Saurabh Rishi. With this brief intro, I present him before you. Please join me to welcome him.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir, for the warm introduction. And so today what we'll be doing is, I'll try to introduce, some of you might be already using some BI tools, but for the benefit of everybody, what I'll do today is take you through exactly what is analytics in the real world and what are the various BI tools, how do we use them, and more importantly as CAs, how do we use these BI tools, right? So let me start with a question. So what according to you is analytics? Anybody? How do you define analytics, or how do you use analytics in your daily life? Anyone? Okay, for me this is analytics. Right? So you have a lot of information, you torture it to get the insights that you want. That exactly is analytics. So even the word cloud that you see on top is basically a text analysis, right? So that is part of the business visualization that we come across every day. So why is analytics so important? So Many of us must be thinking that we are auditors, we are taxmen. So why do we need analytics exactly? So the reason is nowadays everything is moving towards automation, right? Now there are computers who can do a complete audit of all the transactions rather than a human doing a sampling method. And computers have got to the extent they can also, even the tax authorities are using systems to such an extent that they not only relate the ITRs of a particular person, but also try to integrate data from the SROs or from the RTOs or anywhere that the person could have transacted. Because once the PAN number is given, everything else can be linked. So then what is the purpose of the CA here? So as we move in this digital age, the CA has now become a financial consultant or a financial advisor. So while we have information at our disposal, it is important that we can use these techniques or tools to help us aid in making business decisions that will be valuable to our client. So essentially what our job is to help the client's business grow, and that will help our business grow, right? So while we are doing audit and taxation, our more important role in this digital age would be that we are financial consultants or financial advisors with the help of the digital knowledge that we have that can help us making business decisions. So another question, we hope to get more responses this time. Anybody has any answer to this question? You can give it an attempt. Anybody had idli today?
Yes, I had.
Huh?
Yes, I had.
You had, is it? So how many idlis did you have in the last 1 year? Any idea?
Maybe around 3,000.
3,000? Oh my God. So I can tell you how many I had. How do I do that? So on an average, let's say I have two times idlis per week. Okay, and there are 52 weeks. And at a time I have 3 idlis at a meal. So 3 idlis into 2 times a week into 52 weeks. So that comes to around, let's say 300 idlis. 3,000 is a lot. So what exactly I am trying to convey is, any problem can be broken down if we can think analytically. That would be the first step. Yes, the tools and techniques are there, but any business challenge that we come across, if we can break it down analytically, I think so life becomes much more easier. So now, going forward, the next question is, what exactly is data, right? So for a CA, obviously it is financial statement, balance sheets, P&L, but is there anything else that could be defined as data? So for me, again, data is equal to information. So information is nowadays not only restricted to just numbers. So yes, we have numbers, and numbers can be defined as qualitative variables also, if not quantitative variables. So there are many types of variables that we can define. But even now, text is information. Text is also data. Images are data. Video is also data. So when many companies, IT companies, or rather when you, let's say, shop on Amazon, now how do they know what products to recommend to you? They always are recommending products to you, right? So there are many machine learning algorithms in the background that are doing a lot of analysis based on your past purchase behavior, or with respect to, they try to segment what kind of customer profile that you belong to and what are similar customers purchasing, right? So there are various factors, or what are the various products that are primarily brought together. So there are various ways in these algorithms are built to actually recommend a product to you. Now let's say a movie is launched. How do they predict what, they try to predict what is going to be the box office success of that movie, based on, let's say, how many people have watched a particular trailer on YouTube, how much have they watched it completely or not, how many likes are there, what are the comments that are being posted for that particular trailer. Then they try to divide those comments into a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. So that happens a lot in elections as well. So nowadays, most of the political parties We use a lot of text analysis to identify, okay, on the social media, what are people talking about? And they actually make the speeches to cater to that segment of people to meet their needs. So they do a lot of social media analysis, text mining, web analytics, sentiment analysis to actually identify what is the mood of the people. So data is not just restricted to number nowadays. So there are a lot of things that we can correlate to give business insights to a particular client. Now again, when we come to types of data sources, it's not just again financial statements. We have the company's other divisions also. Apart from the finance data, there could be some production data, manufacturing data, marketing data. If we can combine all of that, the insights could be much more useful than just if we analyze the financial statements. We could also analyze public domain data or macroeconomic indicators, customer data or demographics, social media data as I was just saying, or even if required a secondary research or a survey data. So if we combine these various data sources, apart from the financial statements that we generally study, we would be in a position to give better insights or value add to the client, right? So essentially analytics is basically you throw in some raw data. It's like a black box where you use some algorithms, something happens, and out comes some insights or some recommendations or some value add. So there are three things that essentially are important to analytics. So first is obviously the domain knowledge. So essentially, right now we hear the term data scientist. It's a role across industries that is a lot in demand. But right now, data scientist is still not a person. It is still a team. And why is that? Is because there are many factors that define a data scientist. First is obviously the domain knowledge. So let's say as a CA, we come with a lot of financial knowledge. It could be industry-specific knowledge, let's say retail industry, finance industry, or pharma industry. Or it could be domain-specific, like finance, or marketing, or HR. So that defines how well we understand the business, right? The other two factors that are important to a data analyst or a data scientist is, one is statistics and mathematics. So a lot of algorithms that can be run nowadays with high computing power become very valuable for a data analyst. And third is obviously the technology. So we have software programs and hardware that are able to run these algorithms, statistics or mathematical algorithms, to actually predict or prescribe any particular solution. And if you see what are the three different kinds of analytics. So the initial first step is descriptive analysis, which is nothing other than exploratory data analysis. So obviously we try to define, we use a lot of Excel as most people use, pivots, try to define what exactly is happening. But apart from that is also a lot of descriptive statistics. So that could be what is the average of the data set, what is the correlation between two variables, what is the standard deviation of a data set. So just to identify how is my data behaving. So these kinds of descriptive analysis are very important. This also includes business intelligence that we will be discussing today. The second type of analytics is predictive analytics. So predictive analytics is it's not that somebody is sitting with a crystal ball trying to predict what is going to happen, but how these predictive analytics work is basically based on the historical data, can we find the relationship between various variables to something that we want to study. So let's say we are trying to study whether a customer will default or not, or how will be my sales like to be in the future. So what we do is, we try to take in parameters that influence sales. So let's say it could be the price of a product, or it could be the promotion of a product, it could be competitor's price, it could be income of the buyer. So there could be various parameters that influence sales. So then we try to study, okay, historically, if any of these parameters has changed, how is my sales changed? And for these there are various statistics techniques such as regressions, decision trees, neural networks. So these are the algorithms or the statistics techniques that people use to actually predict a sales or a customer default, or what is the likelihood that there's a fraud has happened. So these are, what is essentially being studied is how these various parameters change, and that change influences the parameter that we want to study. The third kind of analytics is prescriptive analytics. Prescriptive analytics is what's the best that can happen. So for these, the techniques used are mathematical techniques such as operations research, and tools or modeling techniques are linear programming or goal programming. So essentially what these things try to do is, how can we optimize cost, or let's say maximize profit, by changing some of the variables while meeting a lot of constraints. So just to give you an example, let's say we have a car manufacturing company, for example we take Maruti, and they want to know how do we minimize cost, or how do we maximize profit by producing how much of each of the models. So I have, let's say, Reds or Alto which are low priced, right, but they can be produced in bulk, and a lot of demand is there. Whereas some of the higher models, let's say Brezza, Vitara, or all those cars, the price might be higher and they can be only manufactured in lower quantities. So my constraints could be demand for each of those models, or the supply I can have for each of those models. So what these linear programming models essentially do is, they tell for the cost to be minimized or the profit to be maximized, this is the amount of each car you should produce so that all your supply and demand constraints are met. So these are essentially the three basic kinds of data analytics. Apart from that, then we move on to artificial intelligence and blockchain and all that. But essentially, the scope of today's session would be more in terms of descriptive analytics. Right? So this is a very famous visualization chart made hundreds of years ago. That actually defines business intelligence or business or data visualization. So what this chart is about is, so it's one great European warrior. He went around conquering the whole of Russia, right? He started from Rome, went across Russia. So what it defines is, in one particular chart, we can see a lot of variables. So it starts with how many forces did he, actually this is about Napoleon. So how many soldiers did Napoleon start with from Europe? How did he travel across Russia? Okay, and as you see, the line keeps thinning down. So he lost many soldiers on the way because of the winter in Russia. And where on did he lose his soldiers, and how did he come back? So what this chart basically describes is, analysis should not be two-dimensional, in the sense that we don't have just an x-axis or a y-axis. So we have here a map, we have the number of soldiers, we know we have a timeline as well when he lost the soldiers, and what was the path he took to return, right? So essentially this is a multi-dimensional analysis. So all our analysis, so this is what BI tools can do nowadays. So Excel to a certain extent can do only a y-axis and an x-axis with respect to various bar charts or pie charts. But today's BI tools have gone way beyond to actually, what they are called nowadays is more in terms of pattern discovery or data discovery, pattern recognition. These are the tools which are interactive in nature. They help you take decisions in a real time. So coming to the BI tools that are there in the market, all of you would have heard of Gartner, which is a premier IT research company, which annually publishes research and opinions about various tools in the market for various IT products. So this is the magic quadrant, I don't know if it's visible, but this is the magic quadrant to show that which are the top BI tools in the market for this particular year. So what you see is first is obviously Microsoft's Power BI, and then there's Tableau, and there are many other tools that like SAS has their own visualization tool, SAP has business objects, or they might be niche players for a specific purpose like MicroStrategy or other products. But what generally people use in the market nowadays is Power BI and Tableau. So Tableau has been recently been taken over by Salesforce, but yet it maintains its identity as a product. So today what I'll try to show you is some both Tableau and Power BI and how do we use these particular tools, and especially as CAs, how can we use these tools to give some value add to our clients or even at our own workplace. So just to define these two tools, so Tableau has an advantage of very good visualization in terms of the canvas, as I will show you. Whereas Power BI is still upcoming, and the advantage is because it's from Microsoft, it can be easily integrated into Excel. It has good database with Azure platform, and another thing is that it's very economically available at a very reasonable price, and a free version is also available to use with limited functionalities. Right, so what now I'll do is take you through some of the examples on Power BI and Tableau, and how do we use the interfaces, how do they look like, some financial data from Tally or something that we can utilize on a daily basis. So very neat looking dashboards that we have prepared with. This is a Tableau dashboard. So this is a sample dashboard. So I made a lot of information at one point of time. So let's say you have sales data or purchase data. A lot of things you can understand just by putting in a dashboard. So it gives you the sales, profitability ratio, sales per customer, okay, by category what are the sales, or by across timelines what are the sales, geographically what is happening where, and also if I change a particular parameter, all the values change. Right, similarly we can do a lot of analysis with respect to the products that the client is purchasing, or even our customers. It's a little bit slow. So this is a simple, simple dashboard that how we can use Tableau. But how do we as CAs use, let's say, data from Tally and make some meaningful insights? So I've done some work for a particular client. So what I did was, we extracted the sales ledger or the purchase ledger and tried to see from different angles how we could analyze that particular data and provide meaningful insights to the client. So another advantage of Tableau or all these tools is they can connect to any data source, right? So you have a list here. So right from Excel to this is the CSV file, it can also extract tables from a PDF file, any R or Python file, and also connect to any particular server. So how this helps is, on a real time, as the data changes in the server, your reports also automatically get refreshed. And all these tools have an online version. So any of the top management present anywhere can just log into their mobile as they log into Gmail and view all the dashboards on a real-time basis and make quick business decisions. Right? So all kinds of ERPs, right from SAP to Oracle's, Amazon's, any ERP these tools can connect to. So once you have, let's say you have extracted some purchase ledger or a sales ledger from Tally, you essentially just load that Excel file into Tableau, and so this is a simple dashboard that I have prepared with respect to purchases for a particular client. So what I try to see is, okay, one is, okay, what is the forecast of my purchases? Okay, I see there are some spikes at a particular time. These tools also help to forecast what is going to be my purchases or sales in the future. I can also see what are my highest selling products, or who is supplying my most quantity of products. At the same time, I can also see my quarterly trends. I can also see the correlation between my price and quantity. So when I say correlation between price and quantity, so what we found was, let's say for a particular product, our client was supplying, our client suppliers, there were many suppliers for a particular product, and each of them was supplying at a different rate. So this helped us to indicate that, okay, while the size indicates the quantity, you are purchasing at a higher price from this particular supplier. Whereas there are many of the suppliers who are supplying at a much lower rate. So why not maybe tie up with them to get supplies from that particular vendor. So these are some of the studies we do with respect to Tally data. If we drill down, so the network is a little slow, we'll wait for it to load. But what we can also see is, with respect to, let's say, time, we can see obviously the trend and the forecast. We can also see the seasonality in, let's say, purchases or sales. So let's say we see a spike in maybe a particular season of the year, or we can also analyze by weekday in these tools. So we also studied, let's say, on each weekday, how are the purchases or sales like. We can also divide it by time of the day that these particular products are purchased or sold. So all these insights would help us essentially give some kind of, to basically understand the business better or the work better, and also to recommend that these are the ways you can improve your business. Right? So something like this helps us study, okay, how are the purchases across weekdays? So we observe that for some reason Mondays and Fridays had the highest purchases. Right? So we could also see month-wise seasonality. So what we saw was, okay, your purchases are higher in, let's say, the first quarter, and we also studied the rates at which the suppliers are providing those products, and we found that there was another season at which the rates were lower. So then we advised the client that why not you stock up the product when the rates are lower. So you purchase more quantities when the rates are lower, rather than purchasing when the rates are higher. Right, we also try to study, okay, across suppliers providing the same product, what are the rates they're providing at, and who are the major suppliers, what are they providing, and if there are two people providing the same product, what are the quantities they are providing at. So many things we can do, and also a lot of filters that we can use to, if we change a particular parameter, how does the entire data change? Or so kind of a what if analysis with respect to all these filters that we have here to understand our client business better. Similarly, so this was with respect to purchase data. Similarly, let's see if we do with sales data. So how this data is helpful is to understand the consumers of our client. So let's say what kind of demographics they come from, or what kind of geographies, which kind of product is selling in which kind of geography. So a lot of studies can be done with sales data alone and maybe advise the client on this is what is working in this particular demographic or this particular geography. These are the products that are selling well. So a lot of these insights can be useful to them. What these tools can also do is, so these were with respect to purchases or sales data. Another work that sometimes we get only text data. So one of our clients, just a large distributor of power plant parts, he wanted to, so he had just a PDF, about 250 pages, which just had, okay, from all across the world, which particular vendor is supplying which particular part. So he said, can you give me a network of all the suppliers who will supply me a particular product. So this is all text data, right? So it just mentions the category of product, the contractor name, the country. But essentially from this data, just the text data, what we were able to provide him was right, something like this, just with text data. Now it was easy for him to identify. So let's say I have one product and I want to know who is supplying that particular product from which country, and we also combine that with the rates he is supplying at. So with one particular dashboard, now he could just identify that particular country or that particular product, and he knows who are the suppliers and can supply him at the best rate. Also, how we use this data analysis is not only for our client, but sometimes we try to use it for our own office administration as well. So what we try to do is even study our own employee working hours. So every employee logs in a particular booking hours. So this is not to micromanage the employees, but in a way to study, okay, where are our employees mostly spending time on, and what are the services that we are providing? Are we doing enough billing for the booking hours that we are spending? So those kind of analysis we also do at our workplace to identify, okay, are we actually spending so much time and obtaining so much billing from the client for the time that is being spent. Another case that I would like to take you on through is, as a CA firm, we got a fraud investigation case wherein the client, he had invested a lot of money in the real estate sector in India, and he felt the real estate entity had siphoned off a lot of funds elsewhere. So in fact the partner was also a CA, so he felt that that person had siphoned off a lot of funds to various other companies by telling him that the company needs some particular investment from these firms, and those companies, he felt that, siphoned off funds. So we did not have any data for that, so we went to MCA website from ROC, we got the financial statements of 10 different companies, and then we tried to see, obviously a lot of financial statement analysis was done, horizontal analysis, vertical analysis, to see how those companies had advanced loans to other companies or to other contractors. But what we also did was, then we used some fraud detection models that you would have heard, like Benford's law, Benish model, Altman's Z-score, which are basically financial fraud detection models. But apart from that, so the client was still not able to see, okay, where has my money gone? So his company had given to a few other companies, and those companies might have diverted money elsewhere, and we don't know if the money had come back. So as of now, we had, let's say, 10 investment companies, and he said that the funds could have gone to 40 other different companies. So how do you represent in a way that the client understands where his money has gone, who all are involved, and where it has gone? So what we gave him was this particular network diagram, right, which basically shows, okay, what is the director and company network and how the money has flown to different companies. So these were like 40-50 different companies' financial statements. If we identify the director of all these companies, we found that the remaining other 40 companies had common directors. So it's likely that funds had flown to these companies. So in one particular network diagram, we could show the entire network of companies and the fund flow to each of those companies, right? So it might look like some Diwali cracker or something, but what I see is essentially, if we zoom in and show, we can actually see the green lines indicate how the fund has gone and the red line indicate how fund has come in, and the thickness of the line could indicate what is the quantum of funds. So essentially what we tried to establish was in one diagram. So we actually printed this out in a screen like this to actually show the client that this is what you need. So with this you can establish, okay, from the financial statements, so much loan or how much money has been paid out to various other companies, and those companies has common directors or related directors to your company, and that's how the fund could have flown, right? So these are different kinds of business visualization. So this idea actually is from social media. This is how social media networks are made to identify, okay, I am connected to you, you are connected to somebody else. So how do we target a particular population? But we use that same social media network analysis to do this fund flow analysis or establish a fraud detection network. So these are some of the examples. So what I showed these were basically a lot of Tableau reports. So very clean and neat, easy to use, user-friendly tools. I would also like to show Power BI. So this is what an interface of Power BI looks like. Pretty much similar, but some advantages of Power BI are, okay, first is the price. So it might not look as neat as Power BI when it comes to visualization, but some advantages are you can ask a question. So this is called natural language processing. So let's say you have a report and you want to know which was the highest product sold or something like that. You can actually type in that particular question. So which is the highest product sold? Okay, you can just type it out, or it also gives you a hint of what all questions you should ask from the data. Right? On the left we have, okay, how many names are there, more recent 3 years will, okay, time sheets or, so it actually indicates what should ask from the data. So right now technology has advanced to this level wherein you can ask questions and the report will throw out answers to you. Another advantage is, so let's say you have the data here and you don't know what to do with it, right? So you also have an option. You tell the tool to auto-generate reports, and it will automatically generate various reports for you. So taking various variables into consideration, it will do a correlation between variables. Right? Another thing that I would like to show you is, with respect to trends and seasonality across time, I'm sorry, the network is a little slow, but you can actually play it out. is actually self-generating all the reports from the data itself. So that if the network is slow, so it's taking time. But these are the reports that it has automatically generated and given insights to us. Right. Another thing I want to show you is, so across timeline, let's say, okay, you see a trend, a static trend, but a Power BI gives you an option to actually play it out, to actually show you, let's say across time, how the variable has changed, right? So if you see, you can see, okay, how this is from our own office data, what is the booking hours with respect to the amount that we have paid across time, right? So this gives an indication as to, okay, in 2015 it was like that, then across dates it keeps playing out how we have actually improved our business or whatever across time. There are a lot of other examples that we can show, but since shortage of time, I would like to end here. Any questions from your side? I will be happy to take. Yeah, sure.
This Tableau and all is generally for where there are a lot of huge companies, right?
Not necessarily. So what examples I showed you were from my clients itself, CA clients, and we have taken the data from Tally. So Tally just downloaded the Excel sales ledger, purchase ledger and made those reports. So apart from obviously the financial analysis, audit analysis, tax analysis, I wanted to show what else we can do with the same. So we just have the date, the purchase date, the product, the category. So from that we were able to correlate, okay, quantity, price, time, trends, a lot of things.
Correct, but then the small clients which we have, they know their business too well.
Okay.
So these things are this I already know, give me something else.
Okay.
So how is then that help?
So many of the times the trends that we observe, the client might not be aware of. So he wouldn't, like many of them were not aware we had so many suppliers for a particular product, and each of them was supplying at a different rate at different points of time. So not everything will be known. Obviously as financial consultants we want to be ahead of them to advise them. So that is where these tools help them. Because essentially the client wants to know what is happening with my own data. They themselves might not be aware.
Yeah,
So just with balance sheet, yeah.
But then if there is something where the client himself knows that I know my business very well. Now
Sure.
tell me something more about the business, then it is what to do with the data.
So this session was about descriptive analysis. Next we can have predictive and descriptive analysis. That might be more useful here.
Which is a more better software if we compare Tableau and DLL?
So as I said, both have their advantages. Tableau in terms of visualization, how clean it looks, and the canvas itself. Power BI has the advantage of cost and some additional features, as I said, and that it can be connected with Excel, and because it's by Microsoft Office, so it's very easy user interface. Yeah, sure.
Good evening. Now, let's say let me take an example for the ease of reference. Let's say I'm a restaurant guy. Okay, I have booking coming from online, Zomato, Swiggy, and payments coming from UPI as well as Paytm as well as cash and bank.
Right.
So multiple sources. So I get that these softwares, for example, Power BI, will be able to take the data from let's say Paytm statement,
Right.
or cash statement from bank, something like that.
Correct.
Right. Now, as in CA, in other sense, can we use that as what is that called? Source data. Let's say I have monthly sales. Let's say I say book 3 lakhs. I need to know how much from Paytm, how much from cash. Can I take that as primary source even for audit evidence?
Yes, definitely.
I mean, are they, what I meant is, are they, what is that called, error free? Can we rely upon them to have, what do you call that, complete data, completeness?
So essentially these tools are helpful in analyzing the data in complete.
That's for
So
sure.
under
That's
audit, you take only generally a sample. Another thing where these tools are helpful is for audit itself. So I have used these tools for auditing to understand, okay, where the discrepancies are with respect to various. And one thing at advantage is you can connect to multiple data sources, as the screen shows, to combine, let's say, from Paytm or Zomato or anywhere, different UPIs, and that can be used as evidence, obviously.
So if I have to, I mean, from what I understand is it does pass the test of completeness.
Yes.
I don't have to worry whether I have actually tested on the complete data or not. It does pass the test of completeness.
Yes.
So does it throw errors if something cannot be incorporated?
Yes, definitely.
It does.
In fact, some of these tools can also be, I mean, you can customize to a certain extent that it automatically throws up alerts when something goes off.
Missing.
Right? So that is a software bit of it. These tools can be connected to some bit of programming to so that anything goes beyond a certain threshold of variance, you send me an email or an SMS or just highlight here itself. So these tools can do that as well. Yeah.
What is the cost for maintaining Power BI or that?
So their website provides all the costs, but approximately Tableau would cost about a perpetual license. Costs about, let's say, $2,000, and AMC is about $500. And if you want to use, so that is for building the reports. If you're just consuming the reports, you just need a Tableau online license, which is about $500 per year. Power BI is much less expensive. It comes to $50 per person per year or something like that. But obviously with limited features. If you go for advanced features, then it costs a lot more. But the plus point of Power BI is its cost.
Is there any training videos or?
Yes, on the website they provide
How do
enough.
we need to use the updates or?
So all these tools have auto updates. So as and when a new version is released, it will automatically update the particular software. So you don't need to worry about that. It will just, you have to just agree to that option, it automatically updates. So as long as you are paying for the AMC, these tools get auto updated. And I mean, the network is not so good, but both these websites have good tutorials to study on your own and start using the products. They have trial versions as well for 15-30 days. That is good enough for you to get a hang of how to start using the tool at least. And they are very user friendly. So just to give you an interface, right? So these what you see are qualitative data. The dimensions are qualitative data. So date or person, education, category of product, name of product. These are your measures. These are your quantitative variables. So numbers, quantity, price, value. These are your variables. So all you have to do is drag and drop them into columns, rows, and across filters. And you have various other options. Let's say size or color or the type of chart that you want to build. So that's why it's called multi-dimensional. And the thing is, in one axis you can put multiple variables. So here, let's say you have two variables, and each variable you can study differently. Let's say you want to study sales. You can study sum of sales. You can also study sum of sales as standard deviation or average or count or any of these options. So yeah, so you have this canvas where it lets you study in a multi-dimensional way. So you can put a variable in color, in size, in rows or columns. So various ways you can study the same data. So it's not just two-dimensional but multi-dimensional, and you can add any number of variables you want to add to a particular graph or chart. Okay, if that's it, thank you all everybody for
Friends, we had an excellent descriptive data analytics from Saurabh Rishi, and he also answered all our queries. Please thank him with a round of applause. As I told token of appreciation and gratitude, let us present a memento to receive. May I request Sridhar sir to come forward and do the honor. Friends, please stand with you once again. Thank you, Sridhar sir.